All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for panel discussion number 1. Let's engage in meaningful dialogues about shaping the future of education. The topic is shift in the K-12 learning paradigm, blended, flipped, and experiential learning. Kindly note that the panel discussion floor will be open for the Q&A session later. I would now like to introduce and call upon stage the panelists and would like to start off with Mrs. Kalyani Patnaik, Principal Hiranandani Foundation School. As she joins us on stage, I'd like to give a brief introduction about Mrs. Kalyani Patnaik. She's an esteemed school principal at Hiranandani Foundation School. With extensive experience in education management, Kalyani excels in soft skills, negotiation, e-learning, educational technology, and instructional design. Holding a master's degree in applied economics from the Delhi School of Economics, she is dedicated to creating innovative learning environments. With a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Mrs. Kalyani Patnaik. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Our next panelist is Ms. Manju Surendran, Director of Academics at Fravashi International Academy. With over 25 years of extensive experience in esteemed institutions across India, Ms. Surendran is an innovative academic leader committed to evolving educational paradigms. Her progressive vision for education is complemented by her role as a trainer for principals of Cambridge schools, where she has shared her expertise in fostering academic excellence. With a huge round of applause, please welcome on stage Ms. Manju, Director of Academics at Fravashi International Academy. Let's have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Our next panelist for the day is Ms. Prachi Ranadive, Principal and CEO, Shishu One School. With a transformative vision for education, Ms. Prachi champions democratic work ethics and amplifies students' voices, essential pillars of progressive education. She is committed to developing creative, analytical, and empathetic citizens. Currently, she is revamping history education at Shishu One with an integrated, inquiry-based approach. She is an advocate for continuous learning and has extensive leadership experience and is dedicated to adopting international best practices. She has completed the courses in the MYP and PYP curricula and earned a certificate in school management and leadership from Harvard. With a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Ms. Prachi, Principal and CEO, Shishu One School. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Next up on the panel is Mr. Kaiser Dopeshi, Head of School, Podar ORT International School, Worli. With over 30 years of experience, Kaiser Dopeshi has shaped student-focused learning environments across various educational settings. As President of South Asia IB Schools Association, Kaiser is a prominent speaker and workshop leader in IB economics and pedagogy. His expertise spans multiple curricula, including the American High School Diploma and IGCSE, and he has served at esteemed institutions like Kodaikanal International School. Kaiser has authored textbooks and received numerous accolades, including the Sankaracharya Jayendra Saraswati National Award and recognition by Forbes as a top educational leader. With a huge round of applause, please welcome on stage Mr. Kaiser Dopeshi. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Our next panelist is Ms. Priya Anand, Head of School, Mount Litera School International, Mumbai. Priya Anand has been in the field of education for 26 years and has held many key positions during her career. Currently, she is the Head of School at Mount Litera School International, Mumbai. She is an IBEN member and holds many positions such as IBDP Program Leader, Evaluation Leader, Consultant, Examiner, DP/CP School Visitor, application reader, and workshop leader. She has led many IBDP workshops over the past 10 years across the Asia Pacific region. She is passionate about promoting the IB philosophy at her school and has spearheaded several community service projects locally, nationally, and internationally. Among her many leadership roles, she is also a visiting member for the Council of International Schools. With a huge round of applause, please welcome on stage Ms. Priya Anand. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Our last panelist for this panel one is Ms. Vandana Arora, Nahar International School. With over 25 years in education, Vandana Arora is committed to fostering a child-centric environment. Vandana holds degrees in geography, economics, and education, along with a master's in economics. She began her career at Delhi Public School and later taught IGCSE and A-levels. As founder principal, she integrates students' psychological needs with academic assessments. Under her leadership, Nahar has received numerous accolades, including the Great Place to Study Award and recognition for individual attention to students. She has also been appointed from Cambridge to mentor the new Cambridge School. With a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Ms. Vandana Arora. Over to Mrs. Kalyani Patnaik, who is also the moderator for this panel discussion, to take it forward.
Good morning. Thank you, Rahul, for the wonderful introduction. And I'm sure all our colleagues who are present here are equally versatile and very enriched in knowledge. I welcome the panelist members also here, who come with diverse knowledge, experience, and here we are today just to share our views and some of our very valuable thoughts, because today we are in a world where we are spoiled for choices and we have plenty on our table. But what is important is the reservoir. Like I keep telling, how much and how little and how more. And that is what we are going to discuss. And this morning, we are going to discuss about the transformative shift in K-12 education, which is characterized by 3 types of learnings: the blended learning, the flipped learning, and the experiential learning. Learning may seem the same, but if we carefully go through each one of them, they are all different. We think we are doing all of them and it's just the old wine in a new bottle, but not so. When we hear, we discuss and have our session this morning, I am sure we are going to go back with a lot of real learning outcomes. Let me just tell you my perspective of these learnings. We first come to the blended learning, and let us know that after post-COVID period, it has been the order of the day. And at the end of it all, we have learned that face-to-face learning alongside the digital space has actually brought in personalized education, bridged the world, and we are not lagging behind in the learnings whatsoever. It has really helped our young learners as well as the adults. Coming to the flipped learning, that is slightly different. We all feel that it is something that needs to be reversed from the traditional learning, where rote learning reigned supreme. But right now, we introduce, that's what I can understand, and my panelists are going to tell me more about it, is that we just introduce a topic and allow the students to develop on it either through research or through discussions, and that heavy weight of homework is not put on them, but they themselves come out with the ideas which we are all supposed to respect and come to a kind of a consensus. So, well, flipped learning does bring in a lot of creativity and critical thinking alongside a lot of research capabilities. Coming to experiential learning, well, let's all agree on the fact that everything begins with an experience. The more experienced you are, the more learning. But learning never stops. And in school curriculum, it has always been a forte, a strength, that with experience we learn, with adaptability we learn. And we did put it in many of our curriculum in the name of SEVA, in the name of SUPW, in the name of CAS. But that is not enough, because experiential learning is hands-on experience. But at the end of it all, what I feel is it helps every young learner to identify their strength, their skills, and hone it accordingly. Like I've said in the beginning, it's all these three types of learnings that are happening, but let us hear the perspective of each one of them. I have wonderful thank you panelists for being here and accepting, because I did want all of you with varied experience to come here. So my first question would be to Prachi. And Prachi, I would like you to share some of your thoughts about how does blended learning impact student engagement and academic performance. You know, considering the fact there is diverse needs. So over to you, Prachi. Let's hear you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Typically, in a classroom, we have various kinds of learners. There are some who are very active and eagerly participate. There are some who need some push and motivation. But then there are these students who refrain from participating. Also, in a classroom, there are some students who are understanding the instructions, abiding by the classroom norms, and engaging in the activities given by the teacher. But there are others who are distracted. As a teacher, it is very difficult to track the level of engagement of every student in the class. Also, most importantly, whether the expected learning outcomes are achieved or not. And that is where blended learning comes to help. Today, using technology, it is possible for teachers to ensure that every student in the class is engaged in the process of learning. Also, teaching is not necessarily equal to learning. And that is where there needs to be checkpoints to make sure that the students are learning. The tools that blended learning has now given are helping in formative evaluation. And the teachers can get analysis of where every student in the class stands, what are the areas of interest, what are the areas of strength and weakness, as well as it is possible to get details of which are the misconceptions, what are the concepts that need to be revisited. So using this analysis, the teachers can make an action plan and ensure that a remediation is done with the students. Finally, timely intervention is the key. If at the time of concept delivery, if the teachers are able to understand what the students are thinking and learning, it's possible to clear their doubts, to overcome difficulties, and definitely this would result in better student performance. Just wanted to share some success story. So what we have tried doing is, as we generate our own learning material for students, and we don't use textbooks up to standard 8, we are using a lot of QR codes. So they help students to access resources for revisiting concepts, as well as if the teacher wants the students to access some resources for flipped classroom, then that also option is given to the students. And now the number of apps that are available to help blended learning are really amazing. Padlet and I think Kahoot was very common during lockdown. But for formative evaluation, we have tried using formative, Edpuzzle. Then there are apps like Edkimo, which can be used for exit tickets. So in our experience, students are really happy to learn, as well as teachers are happy because they are able to engage the
Yes.
students in a better way.
Yes, I quite agree because blended learning has brought all of us together, no doubt. You know, absenteeism is no longer becoming a big issue because we can get them on and we all have technology, right? But what is needed is how the technology is to be used, and not all places are adept in it or have that kind of resources because India being such a large country, it has got its own challenges. Wonderful, Prachya. I'm sure it's a wonderful takeaway to say that it is on a very positive note that we have the blended learning. Now I come to my next panelist, Manju. And Manju, of late, flipped teaching model has gained a lot of popularity because we always feel that, you know, the boring way of just going on one-sided has gone, and which we call in the ancient Indian that Divya Vyakta type, you know. You go on blabbering and they go on listening. So flip teaching, you're engaging them, but it comes with a lot of challenges, right? So can you just elucidate about those challenges and what are they?
Right. Thank you for that question. I think what is education without challenge? And to begin with, I would like to just draw the attention of all the audience and the panel member over here is when you talk about flipped learning, it's a pedagogical strategy. It is not just a mere strategy. So the challenge begins with the aspect that the theoretical background of the pedagogy needs to be understood by the practitioners in the class. The biggest challenge that most progressive educational institutions face is the dire pressure to be innovative in strategies in a classroom. And that's where the flipped classroom comes into the picture as one of the strategy, and it is merely introduced as a tool in the classroom. The biggest challenge, if you ask me, there is no challenge, but from a practical implication, the biggest challenge is the mindset. For generations, we have been a country, a world which believe that an educator is a sage on the stage. So I'm the fountain of knowledge, so it has to start from me. So when you turn that paradigm along, that requires a lot of understanding from a theoretical background and a training to implement that in the classroom. So if I put it down into 4 major challenges to look at it, I would term them as equity. That is when you expect a student cohort to go back and look at a material that has been shared with them to review, understand. Is there an equity in access? The second would be the time management of being able to implement a strategically planned flipped classroom. The third would be instructional design. Has a tutor given thought to the instructional design of a flipped classroom? Or have I just merely shared a content, asked the class to come back and have a discussion? It goes for a toss. So if we change the mindset and understand that I am not a sage on the stage, however, I'm somebody who is facilitating a process, that's the first point of, overcoming the challenge. A thorough immersion into understanding the pedagogical background of the flipped classroom, and then a clear instructional plan would definitely lead to implementing a flipped classroom from a clear perspective. The instructional design is at the core of this practice. So a tutor who's trained how well to consider from a long-term plan to break it down to a short-term plan and into a daily plan, and then consider the strategy of flipped classroom would find much more success than merely implementing it as a tool.
Yeah, wonderful. I think all of us would agree that it is a change in the mindset. When it comes to challenges, why do we say it's a challenge? We'll say, oh, it's there and we've got to face it, embrace it, and then learn a way out. And if all of them are together, both the educator and the learner, and make it a little more instructional and more clear, and I'm sure that flipped is actually more interesting, if you ask me, because when I get into my classes, my first thought is always that, get the topic out of them. And it's not that we have to just, tell them this is the topic. So I'm sure all of us have learnt it and we can think of even newer and innovative ways.
If I could just add one line to it, although I'm the last person, I do not ascribe to a lot of jargons, but we have heard so much about the 4 C's of the 21st century education in terms of critical thinking, creativity, communication,
Yes,
and collaboration. I would like to add the fifth C, common sense. If you do that into the classroom, I think a lot can be achieved.
Excellent, excellent. So we move on to the next type of learning, and that is the experiential learning. I would request if Priya could tell us something about, what feedback have you been receiving from the students and the educators in your institute on experiential learning? I think she needs a mic. She says it's not working. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Priya.
Can you all hear me? Okay, good morning to all of you. So when we're talking about experiential learning, from the educator's point of view, let me tell you that experiential learning has more deeper student engagement. We really see students involving themselves when it's experiential learning. It also helps them for better conceptual understanding, where the concepts are deeply ingrained in them when they have hands-on learning. And it also fosters critical thinking for all the students when they are engaged in experiential learning. And also it builds a lot of teamwork and collaboration among students when they are working and learning together through hands-on experiments or experiences. I feel there's a lot of real-world connect when they are into experiential learning. And it also helps diverse styles. This is something that we've seen because learners have different styles of learning, and that truly helps them and it benefits students with diverse styles. So I really think that experiential learning is a greater way to enhance learning and retention among students.
Excellent, wonderful. I know learning comes with experience, and experience is increased with learning. So both go hand in hand, and today we have learned that, it never stops, and situations teach us. COVID has also taught us a lot. So that has been one other, an experience that we do not want to go through it, but at the end of it all, we have done a lot of learning.
I told you from the educator's point of view. I think from students' point of view also, it helps retention because the retention skills are much stronger when they learn hands-on.
Exactly.
And it increases their motivation to learn better. I feel.
Exactly. It's very good for children with the attention deficiency span, because I think when they get on to the mode of learning by doing, they really have a hands-on experience and learn better. So let's delve more into the topic a little later in our second round perhaps, but I have something for Vandana, who will tell us how to collaborate between these three learnings and bring about a collaborative learning, and what strategies you think we can do. We may be doing it, but you can mull over it and tell us all over again. So over to you, Vandana.
So collaboration definitely is at the heart of everything what we are talking about, whether it's the experiential learning or the blended learning. Strategies could be various, but I think the bigger challenge here is the people whom we are expecting to dig deep into this collaboration, means teachers. So we do talk about the aspects of various new pedagogical strategies which we are bringing in class, but are teachers gone into it? Are they being trained into it? Is it easy for them to understand these concepts? Because while they were growing up, they have not gone through any of these. So that is a big challenge for all of us, and various strategies which we look at it is definitely becoming a challenge for them, because our teachers today are learners in the classroom. So you have a learner who has a responsibility to teach and facilitate, and you have a learner who has a lot of time as well as resources and also the eagerness to learn. Now between these two learners, there is always a clash. The clash of ideas, the clash of thought process, and also the constraint of time. So considering all that, I think in today's time, our bigger challenge is making our teachers unlearn and learn new, and then move into collaborating with students, and then creating a collaboration between students as well as students and teachers.
Yes, Vandana, I agree that we need to be very interdependent if we want good collaboration. Because at the end of it all, these projects can only be successful if it is properly organized, structured, and collaborated. And I think the new curriculum framework, which the government of India has brought in, is moving so well towards it. And I'm very optimistic as an educator that we are going to move ahead where we are going to learn from the learners and the learners are going to learn from us. And this kind of collaboration is definitely a very bright future for the students. Now, coming to the future, I have another visionary leader here with immense experience. Mr. Kaiser, you have to tell me, looking into the future, what are the emerging trends that you foresee will be influencing the future K-12 education? Over to you, Kaiser.
Thank you, Kalyani. I think to begin with, competency-based learning, which the national education policy is talking about, is where I believe the Indian education is moving. However, what we need to understand fundamentally, the emerging trend, if you like to put it, is personalizing learning. For sure, that's the path where you look at the child not as a recipient of learning, but participating in the process of learning. And technology is the enabler of learning. So that's quite clear. While what we are talking about is teaching methodologies and practices, the written curriculum and the assessed curriculum are interlinked with the teaching methodologies. So much more cohesion in this whole space of learning. So now what is personalized learning? Just to dwell on it. On one hand, we talk about differentiation. Now when we talk about differentiation, we talk in terms of content differentiation, process differentiation, and product differentiation. Then the trend, we started talking about individualizing learning, which means differentiation, sure, but along with it is differencing the pace of the child's learning. That's where technology came in to individualize it. Like, how would your day look like? Can I supplant tennis in your timetable? It's not necessary that you need to attend a class. Maybe you can go for a tennis coaching class. Now to this, we come to personalizing learning. So differentiation plus individualization plus personal interest of a child when you put in. Now that framework customizes learning to each child. Now that's where things are running in. As far as schools are concerned, research in North America, etc., is showing that big schools are being broken down into smaller schools. The idea is to bring in that cohesion of one-to-one learning. So schools, as I see, perhaps, are not going to be very conventionally driven schools. Whether you go the competency-based way in your national education policy, or whether you go the way the world in the West is going, all right? But through it all, I'm just wondering that all what we are talking about has to depend upon a lot on professional development, because given what it is, the teacher in 2024, if born in 2000, is 24 years old. So people like us sitting here, perhaps are 20th century dinosaurs, okay, and looking to teach a 21st century curriculum to a 21st century child. So that's where we see that, you know, it's the ability to see how education can be personalized. One data I'll throw to you is that the EdTech world, according to the data analysis group over there, which has given a data, which says the edtech world, which is 700 to 800 million dollars, is expected to grow to 30 billion in 2031. Now that's giving you a trend from the market as to, what kind of a person you need. So what's the kind of person you need? You need a person who has his left and the right side of the brain functional and a personal connect. Now that is what AI can't do. You see? And so a lifelong learner who can adapt. So it's actually stage one set with competency-based learning is how I see the future going in. A dynamic process of good disruption. Disruptions are good. They are stages where we all learn. And teacher, as someone suggested over here, I think it was Vandana who talked about, teachers being facilitators. The time we recognize that we transact curriculums, we don't teach curriculums. But yes, we teach students. But how? By making them think. And that's where facilitation is moving towards. Challenging teaching is a very, 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 very difficult job. The best of teaching can still be improved upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaiser. I think we're all very blessed that we are in a space where we can learn and we can also impart the right kind of education, provided we are all very adaptive and evolve along with our young learners. And today's mantra is that we've got to change and change with times, which we have all done, and we do see success rates only when we change, right? And otherwise we are caught between the web of knots and not knowing. I think we have time even for our second round, and we could be quite brief on this so that if the audience needs to question any one of you all, we are more than willing to answer some of your questions or even learn from whatever you would like to share. So coming to our next round, it's going to be something on the same topic, but then I would like to hear from you that first let me go to Prachi. And Prachi, can you tell me some of the, how can you make this blended learning effective? If you have a story to share, just tell me quickly, tell all of us, in fact, how you have made the blended learning very effective and you have seen that you have been very successful there.
Yeah, I think the solution would be teacher training, because it's just 3 to 4 years that teachers have really started using technology. So that is one aspect. And the second is parent awareness, because somewhere parents feel that screen time is not good, while for personal use they are allowing it to their own children when it comes to school. So making aware that constructive use of screen time and technology is required. I think this would help.
Quite right. Because see, we also didn't know anything. If I have to ask the audience here, 10 years back what we were using, I think we had very little knowledge. And even if we knew something, we felt, Eureka, we have conquered, we have become so great. And we didn't know how to share also. But now today, we are lucky with all the technology and the different companies coming in and really helping us. In fact, I'm glad all these companies have come into the market, because we're able to choose and we're able to customize it. Like Kaiser was saying, you have to customize it because you're always spoiled for choices. Next, I'll come to Manju very briefly. Can you tell us that how have you, you have to prepare a class for flipped learning, right? Because I always believe there is individual difference. Now, A may not be as bright as B. How do you ensure that all have come prepared for the flipped lessons? Because you do introduce a topic. Some may not have even, touched the topic. But how do you ensure? Because that 20% that you have kept, how do you make up in the class?
I think to a larger extent I'd answer that question, but I'll come back to it. It will start with planning and an understanding of...
planning is the right thing.
It
correct.
is at the, foundation of any strategy's implementation and understanding, and also a success criteria to be defined. So once a tutor understands that I need to plan a flipped classroom, The tutor also needs to understand the theoretical background of why this tool is, or it lends itself to a certain topic. Not everything lends itself to a flipped classroom. You need to be very, very having a wonderful discerning eye to be able to identify the topic which can be used in a classroom for a flipped lesson. Instructional strategy is the next big thing that can flip the thing to a better success. A teacher implementing a flipped classroom needs to be very, very clear with the instruction and also have the understanding of differentiating that in a classroom. If it's a classroom of 25 to 30 kids, all 30 of them are not going to take the instruction in the same way. So even the resource has to be differentiated from a particular point of view, and the learning objectives to be very clearly articulated for a student to understand that how do I reach there, what I talked about as the success criteria. So a step-by-step approach with a clear planning, an instructional clarity would definitely give a tutor much more, I would say, a sense of satisfaction to see that they're able to turn a student in a classroom and bring in student agency where the student takes responsibility for the learning.
Yes.
But expecting that it's going to be a hit at the first go, that's where you go wrong.
Yes. I think we have to arouse that curiosity in all of them, right? Like I remember as kids when we were told stories and suddenly they stop, you know? And then you become very curious. What could be the ending? And probably we start searching and all that. So I think it's also another very novel way of getting certain lessons completed through this. Wonderful. Now next question to Priya. And Priya, would you like to discuss with us that in experiential learning, is it necessary that we do it ourselves or we need to associate ourselves with, various outside resources? And could you just explain like what?
So definitely we would look at some industry partners or local partnerships or NGOs or different service providers to help us with the experiential learning. One example I can talk about is where a business management lesson for our DP students, that is grade 11 and 12, was taught in the Camlin factory where the students were exposed to Six Sigma learning and just-in-time production, and the entire operation management lesson was taught there in the factory. So there was no need to come back to school and teach them. So again, like we said, that experiential learning helps students understand that concept better. So we have many industry collaborations that we do. We also do with Bisleri. Bisleri is a very good organization that supports schools where this is a sustainable project. Our school students do collect the Bisleri bottles and it's donated to them, where the students visit the Bisleri unit to find out how granules are made and how they are using that granules to build blocks, furniture. It can be used for furniture. So different organizations provide us that, and we are also associated with Apple Education in India. We are an Apple Distinguished School. So Apple Education provides us trainers that help our students to use technology for experiential learning. So there are many apps that our students use in our school where it enhances their student learning. So
Yes, wonderful. Because what I would like to share with you also some practices that we adopt, that we really give them experiential learning, like simple things like beach cleaning after your Ganpati. We get them organized and we, get associated with certain organizations, and students go there. And then how do you motivate them? That is also very important, because they say it's so boring, we go all the way and we'll get one vada pav or something. I said, that's not the motivation. If you bring in, then you get grades, in this particular genre, and then you're building a profile by learning all this, and then make it more fun. So I think all of us are doing it, but then I would say it should not be only for the secondary classes, but it can even start, from the lower classes where there is an awareness, there are sensitized. Excellent. So let's move to Vandana. Now, Vandana is talking a lot about collaboration, and I know we all believe that unless we collaborate, we do not know. But do you know, is there any kind of benchmarking or yardstick to say that my collaboration has been good? Or how do you do it? This is where my first question comes, how much and where? How is the reservoir seen?
Yeah, so collaboration, as I said earlier, between teachers is more important.
Yes.
Whatever we want to do with students, if we are not able to bring that to our teachers, it's not going to function. So one area which we have started in our school is making our teachers also understand that there is differentiation among them, the same way it is among students. And that differentiation largely lies in connection to their interest areas, their creativity, and their skill set. Because all of them have come from certain areas of expertise. So when we say teacher, that means they have a subject area in their, which is of their interest. They have a certain amount of skill with them, which is connecting to a certain age group or connecting to a certain topic or any other aspect of learning. When we bring all of them together in form of different projects, which they lead, and they come from the areas of their interest, not necessarily from the area of skill. And they get an opportunity to develop skills through that. Then definitely they are able to bring better collaboration in the classroom. Because then they are able to understand the differences among their children, not theoretically but practically.
You're right.
The second thing which works very well is giving them collaborative planning time, because nothing in education or any area can work without planning. But are we able to give that planning time within the school working hours is our challenge. So when we provide that planning and collaboration time for teachers beyond classroom and within the school time, it really helps them to learn from each other, skill point of view, as well as being curious to look at others' interests, and that definitely brings in a better collaboration.
Yes, collaboration cannot happen without learning, without planning. And yes, of course, we only talk of students' individual difference, but there's even teachers' individual difference. Very well put in, because unless we identify what a teacher is meant for which kind, and they collaborate, it can be done beautifully. I think many schools have done this, and I'm sure we can learn from one another. The last question of the day for our panelists goes to Mr. Kaiser. And as I've said, he talks on the larger picture. So what do you feel, what policies, how educational policies can strengthen this? We need even the support of the policy makers. So it could be the government, it could be our boards, it could be ourselves, who put in place various policies. So can you throw some light on that before I throw open the questions to the audience?
Right. When it comes to policies, I think there are few parameters here, like policies, practices which happen, right? So the policy initiative is fine. There are practices and the implementation aspects. So you can kind of see this in your national education policy by Parak being set up as an agency for assessment, stuff of that kind. So policies do need these three little elements to go with. What I do see, as I said, that when we are talking about teaching methodology, we are also looking at the written curriculum and the assessed curriculum as a cohesion between the three. So when we see that, I think a lot in the policy when it comes to the written curriculum will be more about climate education, sustainable education, coming in a big way, in a very big way. That's where all this pedagogy lined up, whether it's experiential learning in particular, collaboration, all the others which were mentioned, do play a key role in it. So that being one, like what is the extension of the curriculum which you are teaching? Health, for example. Wellness of a person is so important. If human connect is what is required, then wellness of an individual is important. especially the role of IA. I was just give you an example. I was just the other day looking at one uh, assessment model for the IB purposes of it. And he was making me go through it, and it was saying like, okay, there are question banks and it'll prepare your question paper. And if you don't want to mark it, the AI can mark it for you, you know. AI can set a question paper for you. You know, this is what is going on, unit plans, etc. So then what is the role of the teacher? You see, that's the key question. So the role of IA, artificial intelligence, in the educational line is also redefining the parameters of how we need to teach.
Yes.
See, so that needs to be embedded. In the content area, as I said, environmental or climate education versus sustainable development. When it comes to the pedagogical...
You know, I know the policy actually structures us, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
we do need it. That is how the NEP has been drafted, and also the world policies. Every country has its own policies and all that. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost coming to an end, and I can only take one or two questions from the audience, or we can just wind up with wonderful thoughts. So is there anybody from the audience, a question to any of the panelists? They are more than happy to answer. We can share the mic. There's one question and we can... You must say that to whom you would like to address it. And introduce yourself, sir.
My name is Suren Ramasabu. I'm from Academica, USA. I have a question for Mr. Kaiser specifically. So you spoke about personalized, individualized instruction and learning. It sounds, nice when we speak on stage, but in practice, isn't it a logistical nightmare? How do you customize it for, let's say, 800 students or 2,000 students? If every student has to have customized, personalized, individualized learning. Of course, you can use technology, but in the US, we always talk about teacher-student ratio, and it's because of this ratio that we're able to offer personalized instruction and things like that. So I'd like you to address from a school administrator's point of view, how you logistically manage, manage that on an implementation scale.
Thank you for that question. The question asked to me was about future trends, all right? So the question asked to me was about future trends. The beginning of personalized learning has happened with the stage 1 of differentiation and individualization, where you structure the pace at which your child is learning. Personalization, for sure, happens in a context when school sizes are looked at, right? In that connection, I did mention to you that in US, there is a policy or department has ensured that schools do break down, right? And that's when you have a school where there's mass education happening. That's your question, like a 4,000 or 5,000. I think you need to redefine what a school is the future trend. You have to redefine it. Like, what do you mean? Is school a building? Is school a factory? What is the school? So that space, that wall, that physical space is moving out. The walls are breaking down. And I think that's where the pedagogy comes in. Even in a class of 40 or a 50 or a 60 or a whatever the size is, okay? I'm sure the CBSE mandates now what should be the size of a class. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So that in itself is an indication that this kind of learning will need to move there. So what are the concrete steps we would take by way of teacher training and these resources in a policy matter? Would it be funded? Would research be awarded? We all talk about teaching pedagogies we represent here. I wonder when it would be like somebody from us here undertakes that research which everybody follows. You see, so it has to come in here. And it is already there in a number of schools which perhaps can manage that with numbers.
Thank you, Kaiser. And one last question before we wind up, because we have overshot, but education today is very kind. And if there is anybody, then we can just keep the question brief. I just want a brief question and a brief answer. And we can have a session even outside over a cup of coffee and we can chat.
Thank you. Sir also spoke about we are dinosaurs and we are teaching 21st century curriculum to 21st century kids. So Priya ma'am or anyone, if you can help us understand maybe one or two things that you've done which help to get the teachers to unlearn and adapt to the new technologies and be more effective in the teaching methods.
The question is for?
Priya ma'am or anyone
Priya.
else, yeah.
So, you want me to give you how to help teachers unlearn? Is that what
Yes.
you're trying
And
to
therefore
say?
I
be
think
more
she wants the
effective.
learn and unlearn part.
Okay. Come again. One more thing you mentioned.
Basically, ma'am, in the new age technologies, ma'am said we are spoiled for choices. We have choices, we have curriculum. But how do we make the teachers be more effective and adaptive to the all the new technologies?
Firstly, I
question
think teacher training, professional development is very important because when teachers have been trained earlier, they've been trained through a traditional way of teaching, right? So when you only help them go through a professional development on latest ways of pedagogy, how you teach them, I think that's the key. Majority of our teachers are not professionally trained in the latest technology. I'm just giving you an example. If you want to use Apple technology, you need to get them to become an Apple teacher, make them go through the training, right? Only through professional development will their mindsets change and they become open-minded. I think that's the key, which we lack in India too, the professional development, spending, investing in our teachers.
And the
If
right
we-
kind of training.
Yeah.
It's not
And-
that you just said everybody for all kinds of training,
No,
just
no.
because they want to upskill themselves.
Yeah, true.
Because I make it a point that this particular training is meant for this
True.
particular.
Another thing I tell my teachers, if you don't embrace technology, you will be left behind. AI will take over us. We won't take over AI. So that's the key. I think professional development and upskilling them helps them to change their mindset and pedagogical shift. Thank you.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I must thank Education Today for giving us this wonderful space and platform for having a wonderful discussion. Let's not close the discussion here today, but please take it beyond today and think about it because our students are going to gain from us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again, my wonderful panelists. Stay blessed and enjoy the day.
Well, that was indeed a very insightful discussion. I would request the panelists to please remain on stage and would now request Mr. Anil Sharma to please join us on stage to felicitate the panelists. Let's have a huge round of applause for all the panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Would also request Mr. Behzad Shroff, Director of Adventure Tours, to also accompany Mr. Anil Sharma in felicitating them. Well, we'll start off with Mrs. Kalyani Patnaik, Principal Hiranandani Foundation School. Let's have a round of applause for Mrs. Kalyani Patnaik, ladies and gentlemen, who's also the moderator for this panel discussion. Next up, would request Ms. Manju, Director of Academics at Fravashi International Academy. Let's hear it for Ms. Manju, ladies and gentlemen. Moving forward, would request Ms. Prachi to please come forward, Principal and CEO of Shishuvan School. Let's hear it for Ms. Prachi Ranadive. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Ms. Prachi. Would now request Mr. Kaiser Dopeshi, Head of School, Podar ORT International School, Worli. Let's hear it for Mr. Kaiser Dopeshi. Moving forward, would request Ms. Priya Anand, Head of School, Mount Litera School International, Mumbai. Let's have a round of applause for Ms. Priya Anand. And last but not the least, Ms. Vandana Arora, Nahar International School. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Ms. Vandana Arora. Thank you so much to all the panelists.